So Oklahoma has said that they're going to start requiring the Ten Commandments in the Bible to be taught in school, and that the Ten Commandments have to be on display. This is like not a Christian thing. It's not an American thing. It's just not. Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm a deep skeptic, also a pastor. So let's talk about the Ten Commandments. Like, the first one is, you should have no other gods before me. And when it says me, it's talking about the God of the Jewish people that eventually the Christians claim as sort of their God as well. So when we talk about the government not establishing religion, not like saying this one religion is the official one, that first commandment, just number one, does that. It violates the whole thing. The other argument being made is that this is some sort of original moral code that existed, that this is the first one, but that's not even close. There are so many moral codes and legal codes and all of that kind of stuff that happened in societies way before the Ten Commandments ever existed. Like, that's an important thing to remember. This is not the original one. This all also seems to be predicated on a popular fiction that America was founded on Judeo-Christian values and that all of the founding fathers were Christians. It wasn't, and neither were they. You can look at some of my other videos to find out which ones were deists. Don't get me wrong. The Ten Commandments are an important document, especially for the Christian faith and for the Jewish faith, because it's part of a covenant that God is making with God's people. And that covenant is to help them be a unique expression of God in the world, like a set apart expression, something different. And the Ten Commandments actually are sort of like a summary document of the larger code that is spelled out in other parts of the Bible at length. There's actually 613 laws in the Old Testament that are sort of summarized by the Ten Commandments. That's important on a whole lot of levels, one of which is to just remember that the Ten Commandments isn't the whole thing, that there's a whole lot that they don't cover. And what they cover really has more to do about what is going to make these people distinctive amongst the people around them, as it is about just simply a moral code. Both of those things are important in what we look at when we look at the Ten Commandments. And including them in schools, especially like elementary schools, really doesn't make sense, because these were intended to govern the life of adults. That's why it talks about your wife and all kinds of things about that, and property and stuff that kids just don't have and understand. And so not only is it inappropriate because it's like a bad idea in a pluralistic world to establish one religion as the state religion, and that we are not founded on Judeo-Christian values, it's also just not developmentally the most helpful thing to teach kids. If you're going to teach them any of the things from the Bible, maybe like the one, love God, love others, or do to other people what you would have them do to you. Those are really accessible and helpful for children. And talking about like owning property and all that kind of stuff, not so helpful. But this is actually a bigger problem than any of those things, because what it actually amounts to is Christians trying to recover their prominence in society and in culture that they had really from Constantine onward and has slipped away, because now we live in a recognizably pluralistic world. And the solution to living in a pluralistic world is not to hunker down and double down and try to make your beliefs the default beliefs for everyone. There is a gift of a pluralistic world. The gift of living in an actual pluralistic world is that all of those other religions and all of those other people who are practicing those other religions have something they can teach you about God. But if your position is always one of fighting them to say you're wrong and I'm right, if your position is always trying to like make your religious faith the default expression of God and morality for an entire country, you lose out on it. You won't learn. You won't get closer to God in the way that you can only get closer to God in this pluralistic world. It's a whole different way of growing, but you short circuit that. And that's what's happening with bills like this. And who knows, maybe, hopefully, it will get struck down. But the bigger issue is that we've got to stop thinking this way. We've got to stop thinking that we need to win the fight for one religion or another, and instead say, let's bring us all to the table to learn from each other about God and how to be religious and spiritual people in the world, because that's the real power of a pluralistic society.